They chose her birthday, her own birthday. Her mother-in-law walked through the garden with a sealed envelope, dressed like she was delivering justice. Her husband looked away. The crowd went silent. Her triplet daughters held hands. What none of them knew, she had been waiting for this day. The garden was beautiful that evening. String lights were strung from post to post, crossing over each other like stars somebody hung low on purpose. Round tables sat dressed in white linen. Flowers filled every corner. A banner above the entrance read, "Happy Birthday, Lenora," and it swayed gently in the late afternoon breeze like it was proud to be there. Neighbors and family friends had dressed up. Children were running through the grass. Someone had set up a speaker near the back fence, and a slow, warm song was floating through the air. It looked like a celebration. It felt like one too, at least for a little while. Lenora stood near the main table in a soft ivory dress. She was 42 years old, graceful in the way a woman becomes when she has been through things and decided not to let those things take her shape. She had a stillness about her that some people mistook for shyness. She was not shy. She was measured. She had a quiet that came from somewhere deep, the kind of quiet that holds more than it ever lets out. Her 3 daughters, Nia, Celine, and Dara, were running through the garden in matching yellow dresses, chasing each other, laughing loud the way 10-year-olds do when the world still feels like it was made for them. Lenora watched them run, and her face did what it always did when she looked at those girls. It softened. Whatever she was carrying, whatever she had been carrying for months, it lifted for just a moment whenever she looked at her daughters. She poured lemonade into a cup and stood at the edge of the party, watching everything with those quiet eyes of hers. Her husband Kofi arrived late, not a little late, the kind of late that made a statement. He walked through the gate with his phone in his hand, barely looking up. He did not walk to Lenora first. He walked to his mother. Claudette was a tall woman in her late 60s, dressed in deep navy, with the posture of someone who had decided a long time ago that softness was a weakness she could not afford. She and Kofi embraced, and he bent his head close to hers and said something low. She nodded. That was the first thing the guests noticed, not the birthday woman, the late husband and his mother. Then Kofi drifted across the garden toward his friend Deshawn, and the two of them found a corner near the fence and started laughing about something only they knew. Lenora saw it. She always saw everything. She just never made a scene about what she saw. She picked up her lemonade, took a slow sip, and smiled at the neighbor's wife who had just walked over to wish her happy birthday. Then the woman walked in. Her name was Renee. She was in her early 30s, overdressed the way people are when they are trying to communicate something. She did not have an invitation. She walked in through the garden gate like she had every right to be there, and Kofi saw her and waved her over like she was expected. He introduced her to 2 guests nearby as his colleague. Some people smiled politely. Some people looked at each other. Lenora watched from across the garden. Her face did not change. She set her cup down, went to check on her daughters, and helped Dara fix the bow on the back of her dress. The birthday toast was supposed to be warm. It was supposed to be a husband raising a glass to his wife, guests clapping, children stealing cake before dinner. That was what was supposed to happen. What happened instead changed everything. Claudette stood up. She did not wait to be given the floor. She tapped her glass with a spoon, and the talking around the garden fell quiet, one table at a time. People turned to look. Claudette straightened her back and began to speak. She did not call it a toast. She did not call it a tribute. She called it the truth. She said she had watched her son give 20 years to a woman who never deserved him. She said she had stayed quiet long enough out of respect for the marriage, but that there was no more reason for silence. She said Lenora was not the woman Kofi deserved to grow old with, that she had always known something was off, that a real wife would have said so and stepped aside long ago. The garden went completely still. The music had stopped. Someone had turned it off, or it had just felt that way. Guests were looking at their laps, at the sky, anywhere but at Lenora. Kofi stood near the fence with his hands in his pockets and said nothing. He looked at the ground. Deshawn looked at his phone. Renee stood near the dessert table with the smallest smile on her face. Then Claudette reached into her handbag. She pulled out a sealed envelope. She walked it across the garden slowly, with her shoulders back, like she was crossing a stage she had rehearsed for years. She set it on the birthday table next to the cake that had not been cut yet. She looked at Lenora and said, "Consider this a gift." Nia reached for her mother's hand first. Celine stepped in close on the other side. Dara, the youngest by 4 minutes, began to cry without making any sound, the tears just rolling down her face like they did not know how to stop. Lenora looked down at her daughters. She put one hand on Nia's shoulder and one on Dara's cheek and wiped the tears with her thumb. Then she looked at the envelope on the table. Then she looked at Claudette. Then she looked at Kofi. He still did not say anything. Lenora nodded once, slowly, not out of defeat, not out of surrender, the kind of nod that means I already knew this was coming, the kind that means you just made a mistake you do not understand yet. What Claudette did not know, what Kofi did not know, what not one person standing in that garden that evening could have possibly imagined, was that every inch of the ground beneath their feet belonged to Lenora. Every flower, every light, every table, the whole $17 billion story started right there, right in that garden, on that evening. At that birthday party, they turned into something else. To understand Lenora, you have to go back. Way back, before the string lights and the ivory dress and the sealed envelope on the birthday table. You have to go back to a small town in rural Georgia where the roads were red clay and the porches were wooden and wide, and the mornings smelled like pine and something baking. That was where she came from. That was the ground she was made from. Her parents died when she was 7. A car accident on a wet highway late November, the kind of night that takes things without warning. Lenora did not remember it all in sequence. She remembered her grandmother's arms. She remembered being lifted. She remembered the smell of Nana B's house, flower and lavender and cedarwood. And she remembered deciding somewhere in the blur of that grief that she was going to be okay. She did not decide it out loud. She decided it the way a seed decides to push up through concrete. Quietly, without asking permission. Nana B was a small woman who had never been small in any way that mattered. She worked land that had been in the family for 3 generations. She kept a garden that fed them through hard winters. She went to church on Sundays and believed in God, the way people believe in something they have actually seen show up. She did not raise Lenora to be loud. She did not raise her to be aggressive or combative or hard. She raised her to be grounded, rooted, unshakable in the quiet way that trees are unshakable. Before Nana B passed when Lenora was 19 and in her first year of college, her grandmother pressed something small and cold into her palm. It was a pendant on a thin chain. Brass shaped like an old skeleton key, worn smooth from years of being handled. It had belonged to Nana B's mother before her.